What's going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. Got a video today, but before I get into it, if you haven't subscribed yet, guys, please take some time to do so. Hit the notification bell. We just hit 3,000 subscribers. You still have a chance to enter into the contest. If you get to it before this Thursday, November 19th, find my 3K subscriber contest video. Watch that video, see what you need to do. It's really, really simple, really basic. So again, shout out to each and every one of my subscribers for supporting me along this road. But let's get into this video, guys. This is comic book industry Illuminati. You guys might be like, what is this guy talking about? All right, guys. So I'm going to talk about conspiracy theories within the comic book industry. All right. And I'm not here to necessarily, hit everyone with a stick that speaks up on so-called conspiracy theories. I'm gonna set the tone like this. There's a lot of issues in this industry that we should speak up on. Obviously, I speak up on a lot of issues. I think it is very, very important and imperative that we hold the industry as a whole accountable, whether it's fellow collectors, sellers, buyers, industry leaders and companies within the industry, LCS owners, CGC, Key Collector Comic app, like so forth, right? But I do feel that there is a line that tends to be crossed where we take certain individual situations that could be problematic and turn it into this big overdone conspiracy theory. And I think turning things into conspiracy theories is almost more problematic than the isolated incidents within themselves. So you may ask, well, conspiracy theories, what are you talking about when it comes to conspiracy theories within the comic book industry? Okay. The one that I want to address first and foremost is manipulating the market. All right. Manipulating the market in a way to where books that otherwise have no real value or maybe have a bit of a lower value are then manipulated by a group of people that through specific tactics can drive a book that has no value up to being a key $100, $200, $1,000 book, right? Now, I'm not saying that there aren't isolated incidences where people try to do something like this, but is there a conspiracy that can actually and actually does manipulate the market? I say no. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now, more about the conspiracies is how basically the branches of the tree break out from this, where we've heard the conspiracy theories about individuals such as Comic Tom and Key Collector, who, as always, I will say I've talked about Key Collector and my issues with their documentation and how they label things on their website. But when it comes to a conspiracy theory of them, working with Comic Tom to, again, pick some random book and say, this book is hot and we're sitting on like 100 copies and we're going to tell you to go buy it. And then you're going to buy it from our eBay store, marked up like 20 times the fair market value and all this stuff. So again, it borders or it goes down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories that there's this big grand scheme of stuff going on in the background by these individuals that are plotting on us, right, to make money off of us. All right. A lot of this is circled around eBay. And I'm going to bring up an example that a fellow community member brought up, and much respect to them if they're watching. This is not to drag anyone under the bus. I looked at this situation as one that should have been brought to the attention, but I do feel that it was talked about in a bit of that conspiracy theory way. And I think that kind of did the individual situation injustice, because it took away from, say, what is a situation of an isolated, possibly bad seller, to taking something that's going on in the industry and saying it's invalid. And let me break that down. So what had happened was there was a Star Wars Clone Wars #1 being sold on eBay for around $1,600, right? Which has been the fair market of that book for over a month now, and a 9.8 CGC graded, right? So there was a seller on eBay that sold the book, had a listing where the book sold on October 28th. And then the book sold again, I believe, on November 9th. All right, less than 2 weeks later. Only for about $20 more. And this individual brought this up saying, okay, this is a red flag. This is they're posting books on eBay. They have a shell account or a friend buy the book at a bloated price, so it bloats the price and then they'll relist it and allow people to go and actually buy it. A real buyer buy it at this bloated price. They did bring up the fact that this seller had everyone who bid on it, it was private. So that's a bit of a red flag, like, okay, what's going on here, all right? And it was the same book because the barcode on the CGC label was the same. But here is my argument to that. I said, yes, something's fishy about this. It makes me wary about that seller, but the market was not manipulated, okay? Like I just previously said about 2 minutes ago in this video, the fair market value of that book had been at around that same price point for at least a month, and it was slowly climbing to that prior months. We know this book has been hot. So the first sale from this seller was not sold at a bloated price. It was sold at fair market value, whether they sold it to themselves or they sold it and maybe somebody didn't make a payment and they had to open a claim and relist it, whatever the case may be. The second listing only sold for about $20 more than that first listing. So again, nobody manipulated the market here, even though this isolated situation may have been sketchy. Now, I went ahead and emailed this eBay seller, right? And now if somebody's doing something sketchy, they're probably not going to tell you. But the interesting thing is, and this is what I asked him, I said, hey, I just noticed that, this book was listed twice. Can you let me know why it was and how you sold it twice? And they responded back saying that it was sold and then the buyer didn't pay and he had to open an eBay claim. And then he said, thanks for noticing that right away. I hope, I appreciate your business and I hope you enjoy the book. So it seems like he thought that I was the buyer of that book the second time. So this is how I'm gauging it. Although I just said that somebody doing something sketchy wouldn't tell some random person the truth, right? I feel that was truthful because he thought that I was the buyer. So it actually showed that this individual sold this book legit. Now, do I know that 100% is fact? No, but I'm hypothesizing here and looking at it as it is. So regardless of the fact, this isolated situation did not manipulate the fair market value of this book, okay? Now, let's talk about ethics. We should, this is my humble opinion, stop looking at these things as conspiracies and look at the situation as there are unethical people. And that's always going to be the case. Look, is there somebody out there that's going to try to price a book at 10 times its fair market value and try to get over on someone? Yes. Is there somebody that might have a shell account on eBay and might, sell a book to themselves at some bloated price, hoping they can relist it again to get a bloated price? Sure. All right. There are shady people in any industry, though. In any business, in any industry, you're going to come across unethical individuals. All right. That doesn't mean that there's some conspiracy theory. All right. It's just like, and I don't mean to get too much into this, but it's just like the ways of the world and this Illuminati thing, right? People act like if the Illuminati really existed, right? Like the 1% Masons and, the whole, for those that, have educated themselves on this whole global Illuminati thing that of the 1%, right? If the Illuminati really existed, would random YouTubers that just make YouTube videos, I'm not talking about comic book YouTubers, I'm talking about those people, conspiracy theory YouTubers, who's going to tell them? If the Illuminati exists, nobody's going to know about it. Nobody. Because they're the Illuminati. But in the reality of it is that a lot of this stuff that goes on isn't a conspiracy theory. It's known. It's known that the billionaires and the trillionaires have money in our government's pockets and control the world banks and stuff like that, right? It's known. It's not some conspiracy theory. Nobody's feeding you Kool-Aid to blind you. They do it right in front of your face. So that's the same thing with this comic book stuff. Look, it's known that individuals will try to do some shady stuff. Doesn't mean it's a conspiracy theory. I've talked about this before. It's really, really hard to manipulate a market for two reasons, okay? For one, I truly believe it's going to take more than one book. One book bloated. Like if there's a book that has a fair market value of $100, right? And it's been selling for that for a good, few weeks, few months, whatever the case may be. And somebody on eBay does something shifty and, they have a shell account and they buy it for $800. That one sale is going to be an outlier. And for anyone doing their due diligence, they're going to see that. All right? So to say that one book is going to manipulate the market, that's a stretch. And here's another thing of why it's so hard to manipulate the market and why the whole Comic Tom theory is ridiculous. And I've talked about this before. Do you know how much work it would take for an individual to actually, especially an individual like Comic Tom or Key Collector, to sit there and sit on like dollar books or $5 books and try to manipulate a market to make a few bucks off of these books, right? Because what they would have to do is they would have to, first off, put their livelihood in jeopardy. These people like Comic Tom and Key Collector put in work day after day, whether you like them or not. I'm not saying to like them or to hate them. I'm just saying for what they do on YouTube with the Key Collector app, they're businessmen. Why would, and they have residual income coming in from their legit businesses. Why would they, if there was fact that they did something unethical just one time, it would ruin them. It would ruin them. Why put your, ethical, substantiated business at risk to try to find some random, Hulk book that you could buy for $4 and say, okay, guys, I'm just pulling this out. This is the hot new book because it has, this guy on the cover or something. And man, yeah. And they're telling their guys like, okay, go list them on eBay for $40 now. Like, seriously, guys, people don't have the time to do that are in those positions. I'm telling you, it's not worth it. It's a process. So again, we have to scale it back and look at each isolated incident and use our best judgment to say, okay, this may be unethical, it may not be, but let's not jump to this conclusion of conspiracy theory, right? So that goes for everything across the board. It'd be like me and calling CGC a conspiracy theory because I have issues with CGC. I have many issues with CGC, right? I think they have a huge issue in quality control. I think that they are overworked and understaffed. But is it a conspiracy theory? Are they like trying to take your money and give you false grades? Like, there's nothing to substantiate that whatsoever. So my thing is this, when people call out the conspiracy theory, and I'm not saying that everyone, but I think people need to take more accountability in what they do, all right? Because if there's a book that you're looking for, right, and that book, say, has a fair market value of $100, and you see a book recently sold for 4 times that or something, right? There are so many different ways that you can educate yourself before you jump on a book that might be being price gouged by an isolated seller, all right? If there's a fair market value that's $100 and you pay $400 for a book, for that book, off of eBay or from a seller that says this is a fair price, I'm not going to blame the seller. I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy. I bought it for $400 and it's only worth $100, so they manipulated the market. No, the only thing that was manipulated was you. The market wasn't manipulated. You were, because you didn't do your due diligence. You didn't do your research. Let me take an example of how you can do research to make sure a fair market value is decently accurate. All right. You could go on coverprice.com, right? And you could see a fair market value for a 9.6 or a 9.8 book, right? But it's an average of a sliding scale. So what you can do is you could go into the individual months, and maybe a book got hot, and you can look at how the book gradually increased in sales. And then what you could do is you could take the last month's sales and add them all up and divide them to get a new fair market value average for that book. All right. And look, don't just, when you go on eBay and you want to look at sold items to find a fair market value, don't just look at the last few sold. Look at what it's doing throughout the recent weeks and throughout the recent months. Call your local LCSs, see what they have, see if they have the books and what they're selling it for. Go on Facebook Marketplace, go on Mercari apps. There's so many, use Key Collector comic app, use Go Collect, use Comic Book Realm. Do your homework, all right? Because here's the thing. If you guys really think that one sale of a book at a bloated price to a shell account is going to manipulate the market, it's not. And the only way it can is if individual buyers start getting manipulated to believing that that one sale is now the norm. And then everyone else starts believing that and starts paying that price. And then you are going to have a new fair market value, and it's going to be that higher price. But again, that fair market value is still fair because all of you buyers were manipulated and duped to believing that you should buy it at that price. That's not a conspiracy. That's not anyone else manipulating the market. It's you not doing your homework. All right? So, at the end of the day, we need to be calling out ethics. I stand firm, and I highly support individuals to call out anything that they think is not ethical. Okay? But I advise those that want to do this to be careful with the context that you make your claim in. Don't over exaggerate the situation. Don't sugarcoat the facts. All right, because to this individual, and much respect to this individual, I believe that the facts were a bit distorted because that one book, that Star Wars book, that may have been a sketchy situation, the fair market value of that book was not affected. It was not affected whatsoever, and that's how it was stated. So we have to be careful with doing that. So with that being said, guys, that's my video. Again, we have to be sound, educated buyers and collectors, and we need to be smart and patient in our decision making, and we need to hold ourselves accountable. Look, we have a community here with a lot of content creators talking about how to educate yourself on making solid purchases, tips on collecting. And for you guys watching me, my door is always open. Leave me some questions in the comments. I would love to help everyone become a more educated and sound investor and collector of comic books. So with that said, guys, let's keep pushing forward, stay positive in the hobby. Thank you guys for watching. And again, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Let me know your thoughts below. Check out official merch, link below too, Journos Comics merch. And again, if you are willing to sacrifice only $3.99 a month to become a Patreon of the channel, you will get some awesome perks. And right now, you will still be entered into my awesome Patreon-only contest where you will win this beautiful Tales to Astonish 91 as well as some other awesome prizes. So again, thank you guys for watching. Be well, and until next time.